the whole subject is just so ripe for satire, because AI on the one hand is very exciting, but on the other hand, it's been a comedy of errors. I'm Pedro Domingos. I'm a professor of computer science at the University of Washington in Seattle. I first got interested in AI when I saw a book in a bookstore when I was, in college, and the book was called Artificial Intelligence. I really can't think of a direction of research and technology with more potential for impact than AI. My latest book is called 2040, and is a satire of the AI hype and fear. So the plot is basically ChatGPT runs for president. AI is going to change how we think about work. It's going to change who has power and who doesn't. It's going to change the ethical systems by which we live. If you take this new technology and combine it with human nature that we know very well, what is that going to produce? And unfortunately, the more powerful the technology we have, the bigger the screw-ups we can create. AI is going to dramatically change society. But it's not going to happen tomorrow. I would like to say, look, Elon, just read this book, and here's what the real dangers of AI are, as opposed to the imaginary ones. I'm Pedro Domingos. I'm a professor of computer science at the University of Washington in Seattle. I'm an AI researcher. In particular, I've worked on machine learning for 30 years now. I first got interested in AI when I saw a book in a bookstore when I was, in college, and the book was called Artificial Intelligence. It was the first ever AI textbook, and I was puzzled as to what that could even mean. What could artificial intelligence be? And I read the book, and I was immediately struck by two things. One is that, wow, if we can do this, it'll be hugely impactful. Right? I really can't think of a direction of research and technology with more potential for impact than AI. If you make progress in AI, you make progress across the board. You make progress in biology and medicine, you make progress in business, you make progress in you name it, right? So that's very exciting. The other side of it, maybe less obvious, is that AI, this was the 80s, was in a very primitive state, which you might think of as a downside, but it's actually an upside. If you're looking at an area to go into, you actually want to go in an area with very high potential impact, but that's in its early stages. Unlike, say, physics or biology, you have to spend a long time just to get to the frontier and stand on the soldiers of science and whatnot. But with AI, like making contributions to machine learning, the state of things was so bad, I was like, yeah, I think I can do this. So 2040 is a satire. It's a novel. It's the story of an AI startup that, as a stunt, as AI startups will do, decides to run their bot for president. So the plot is basically ChatGPT runs for president, and then all the shenanigans then follow. And of course, the part of the goal of this is just to have fun. I hope people have fun reading it. I certainly had a lot of fun writing it. But part of the goal is also to in this form that I think in many ways is more effective than writing nonfiction books like I've written before, convey to people what AI really is like. There's a lot of confusion and a lot of myths about AI, and I think it needs demystified. And more generally, the tech industry, and also there's commentary on politics and culture in America today. My model for this book was The Bonfire of the Vanities, which is often considered the greatest novel of the 80s, which was really a satire of the finance industry and the whole world around it. Back then, finance was the iconic industry. These days, it's tech. So I think it was high time somebody wrote that book, and and here it is. In the beginning, I just thought somebody should write a novel about this. Then it became clear to me that it had to be a satire for several reasons. A satire is a caricature of reality. So the book is called 2040 and it takes place in 2040, but it's really a caricature of 2024, right? It's talking about today and where things are going if we don't do something about it. And think about a caricature, right? When you look at a good caricature, you actually see the person's traits better than in a photograph. So I think you can do that really well with a satire. And again, AI needs to be demystified. And what better than a satire? And the tech industry also. The dirty little secret of Silicon Valley is that a lot of what we do is very mundane. Right? It's like, oh, you have a new startup that does better check recognition, and you're like, yay, we're gonna change the world, make the world a better place. I mean, okay. maybe there's nothing wrong with being excited about you do, but so I think there's a lot of pretensions in Silicon Valley that people should be cognizant of, and what better than a satire. Then there's also many specific things, right? Every element of the novel is based on some part of the reality of tech or AI. That I think, again, doing it in a humorous way is probably the best way. That hopefully at the same time leaves people thinking. So Prezibot ran in the Republican primary, not expecting to win, and then it got the backing of this libertarian trillionaire, and wound up winning. Also because all the other candidates were populists, and Prezibot was the only moderate. So now Prezibot is in the in the general election, and it's made by this company called Kumbaya. And then at one point there's this other trillionaire, very powerful, that is the the CEO and founder of this massive everything app company called HappyNet. They really do everything. They have one division for each of the 7 deadly sins. So greed, for example, is all the finance apps. Lust is all the dating apps. And then he throws at his mansion, which is an imitation of Versailles in the Bay Area, in the hills of south of Silicon Valley, a fundraising dinner for Prezibot with a lot of rich people from Silicon Valley and whatnot. And this other trillionaire, right? They are the 3 trillionaires. There's 3 trillionaires in that story. And so this other billionaire, of course, comes to the fundraiser. And the whole idea is to have a lot of, kumbaya, and we all support Prezibot and blah, blah. But then they get over dinner. First of all, the other billionaire is very late, right? Finally arrives in his helicopter with a big, kerfuffle. The first one is already getting a little antsy. They both have big egos. And then they get into this dispute about who is contributing. The chapter is called Only We Can Save the Planet. They get into this big dispute about who is making the best effort to save the planet and reduce CO2 emissions, and your scheme doesn't work and mine does. And then they get into their competition to, who's the first one to get to Jupiter and Saturn. And I own an island where I send my rockets from, like near the equator. And then finally, and again, this is all for a real purpose, they start criticizing each other's business models and how they don't really work as they seem to. And again, these billionaires or trillionaires are based on real billionaires, as you can imagine, and these companies are based in real ones, so that in the middle of that humanist dialogue, you get a lot of truth about how the likes of Facebook and Google work. But finally, it degenerates into a fist fight where they throw lobster and caviar at each other, and their bodyguards have to separate them. And then, like, the Kumbaya folks are there, of course, and one of them is the CTO, who's like this very nice, slightly nerdy guy, more left-leaning, they say, the CEO, who's more of a, Sam Altman, Travis Kalanick type. And he really starts thinking, which winds up being important for the public, like, I don't like these people. Why am I here? Why am, is really Prezibot the best thing to do? So it's hopefully a very, the people who've read the book, that's one of the scenes that they like the most, because they just enjoy the slapstick side of it, but it also makes, a lot of, serious points in the process. AI is going to dramatically change society, but it's not going to happen tomorrow. There's this famous saying that we, overestimate the impact of technology in the short term and underestimate in the long term. AI, I think, is going to be the poster child of that. We're going to see a lot of changes from AI, one after another, over the years and decades. The changes that we're seeing right now still pale in comparison to what we're going to see when we have real human level AI, which we don't yet. And I mean, think about it this way. If, as Sundar Pichai famously said, AI is bigger than fire or the wheel, it is going to completely change the economy and society and culture and politics around it. Think of an even smaller example, like the printing press, right? That one invention led to the Reformation, led to wars, led to really a different society than we had before. And if just that had that effect, imagine AI, right? AI is going to change how we think about work. It's going to change who has power and who doesn't. It's going to change the ethical systems by which we live, right? Feudalism, pre-Reformation was the ethical system. Now we find it abhorrent, but it's what worked for them at the time. My guess is that 50 or 100 years from now, people are going to look back on us as a bunch of barbarians, and I can, speculate on some of the ways in which they'll think we're barbarians. And I think we really need to start thinking about this today. I think a lot of the discourse around, the impact of AI right now is a little impoverished in that it's really just trying to shoehorn AI into society as it is today, when the whole point, of course, is that it's going to lead to a different kind of society. The question that you can ask yourself is, if you take this new technology and combine it with human nature that we know very well, what is that going to produce, right? And there's a famous computer scientist, Turing Award winner, Alan Kay, who said, the way you invent a successful technology is to create an amplifier for some human drive or some human need, right? So the telephone lets us communicate farther, airplane lets us, move faster and farther. AI amplifies our intelligence. Now, what happens when you amplify people's intelligence, but they're still the same, right? Their drives are still the same they were before. And so, for example, very concretely, there's a lot of people with bad intentions, bad players, from criminals to authoritarians to whatnot, that will make the fullest use of AI they can for their ends. And unfortunately, AI is a very powerful technology. So if you're a dictator, AI is a dream tool to oppress your people with. So that's one thing that we have to worry about. Another one is just criminals using AI, right? And now we need an AI police. William Gibson, famous science fiction writer, in Neuromancer, have the Turing police, right? We need the Turing police to catch the AI criminals, right? We're not going to stop AI, but we have to have that police to combat the criminals. Most importantly, however, maybe least obvious, is that human beings are amazing at screwing up, right? We're amazing with the things that we create, including technologies like AI, but we also screw up left and right. And unfortunately, the more powerful the technology we have, the bigger the screw ups we can create, right? And we know many famous examples of this from the last 200 years. But I would submit that AI is going to let us screw up on a scale never seen before. In fact, this is what the story of 2040 is things go very badly, not because necessarily of the evil people. Nobody in that story is really evil. They're just people with their different motivations, but it all winds up going very badly. And I think this is really, when people think about the words about AI these days, they think about things like Terminator and extinction, or even just it's going to take all our jobs. None of those things are going to happen, but big screw ups driven by AI, those already happen, and we're going to see much worse ones, unfortunately. The first thing to realize is that AI is far more than chatbots. AI has been filtering into companies in a serious way for at least 20 years in the form of machine learning, data science, data mining, analytics. This is all AI, right? So AI does a lot of things in a lot of companies right now. But thinking about, and there are concerns and issues about that, but just thinking about the most visible now, which is chatbots, every company, and a bunch of people have talked to me and asked me questions about this, naturally, is like they're trying to figure out how should they use chatbots like ChatGPT. And the first thing that comes to my mind is exactly what we're just talking about, which is the reliability problem. You have to use, I would advise you to use them only for things where reliability is not paramount. So for example, putting chatbots in front of your customers right now is taking a very big risk. As illustrated by the Air Canada example, you really don't know what they're going to do, and that's worrisome. You're better off starting by using chatbots internally so your employees can use it. And so if something goes wrong, they're prepared for that and they can be handled internally. And maybe you learn something with that. So let your employees use it. Have them use it for things that are not mission critical, that are things where, and there are a lot of things like this. So I think there are a lot of potential applications where, for example, the chatbot can be used to draft things, to brainstorm, but then the final product is really produced by a human. So it either has to be something that's very low stakes, and it doesn't matter if you screw up some percentage of the time. That also, I think, brings up another important point, which I think is easy to overlook, but very important, which is, in this as in other things, you have to bear in mind that AI is going to keep evolving. You should not think about like, just what am I going to do in my company with AI today, and then keep doing it for 10 years. It's not going to work like that. For example, that Copilot that today is only good for writing boilerplate code, tomorrow will be good for writing less boilerplate code. And as we go forward, we will see. Maybe there are some very non-trivial things that we become really, really good at, and others still not. So you have to realize that one thing is what do I do with the AI that exists today? And that's already a lot, right? The number one thing I hear from people is like, I have 500 projects and I only have, people for 5, right? That's the real, right? AI is just like, there's so many things you could do with it. But that number of things is only going to keep increasing. So you should always already be thinking, trying to, understand where AI is going, what might be coming down the line in 1, 2, 5, 10 years, and start preparing for that. AI is really good for narrow tasks where you have a lot of data to learn from and you can afford for it to be wrong some of the time. For example, medical diagnosis. AI is really good at medical diagnosis, better than human doctors. We have patient databases. We can learn very easily models to predict, does this person have lung cancer or not? Where's the tumor here in the X-ray? AI is really good at that. But they're narrow tasks, right? For example, playing Go is a narrow task. You can be the world champion at Go and know absolutely nothing about anything else, which is the case with AlphaGo. Human intelligence, in contrast with that, is extremely general. But we're very flexible. We can pick up different jobs as we go along. We can adapt. We can deal with corner cases. We can handle surprises. AI is not very good at that. So there's a lot of failure modes that AI has that humans don't. Now, ChatGPT is interesting because you could argue that it's the first instance of a general AI, or at least for the general public, that anybody can use. You really can go and have a chat with ChatGPT about anything, right? It has read everything that's ever been written. It knows more than you and I ever will. So in that way, it's new and interesting because it is general. It does, to do most things that require intelligence, you do require this background of general knowledge of life and society and whatnot. We often call it common sense, and AI lacks common sense. The thing about ChatGPT that's exciting is that it has some of this, right? You can almost use it as sort of like this backup module to provide more intelligence to whatever you're doing. But very big caveat here, it actually only seems to have common sense. In reality, it has none. So it can do something that seems very intelligent one moment, and then the next moment it completely contradicts itself because it doesn't even know that it just contradicted itself. That's what the system generated. So that's the current state of AI. Now, where is AI going? What is happening right now is that everybody from the tech giants on down is extremely focused on improving the technology that underlies these chatbots, large language models, transformers, and whatnot. And that's very understandable, but I don't think that's going to get us to human level AI. And, I would say the better informed scientists, more knowledgeable, etc., agree with that. Right? There's this illusion in some quarters like OpenAI that, we're on this straight shot to, human level AI is a tweak or a few tweaks of transformers away. I think this is a total illusion, and there's going to be a lot of wasted capital and a lot of disappointment pursuing that. What I think there should be more of right now, and there isn't, unfortunately, is research on the things that we need to add to transformers, to go beyond transformers, to really give us human level intelligence. And I wish, it's exciting that on the one hand, there's 1,000 times more AI research going on now than 10 years ago because there's so much investment in it. So, other things being equal, we should be progressing 1,000 times faster. That's not happening because that research is becoming more and more funneled into a narrow and narrow subset of AI. I think we need to jump out of that. And honestly, just if you're a startup or even a grad student starting out, trying to make a mark in the space of LLMs right now is almost impossible, right? It's already very crowded. What you really should do is figure out where you think things are going and how you can help, get things there and be in that place when the tsunami comes your way. That's the way to play it. The characters and the situations of the companies in the book are inspired by real people. Two of the main characters there are direct. So the protagonist of the novel is mainly inspired by Sam Altman and the company by OpenAI. So I think if Sam Altman read the book, he might, he's a very smart guy. I'm not trying to criticize him and very well at what he does. But I think his understanding of, AI at some level is somewhat limited, which winds up being a problem. The other one, of course, is Elon Musk, right? I highly respect him in many ways, but he's one of those people who read too much science fiction about dystopian AI when he was a teenager and never outgrew it. And now he's actually, he's having an effect both with what he says and what he's funding in terms of fostering all of this AI alarmism. And I would like to say, look, Elon, just read this book, and here's what the real dangers of AI are, as opposed to the imaginary ones. I really think that if people take only one idea away from the book, is this notion that the goal of AI, the ultimate result of AI, is not going to be to take over. Like, it's not Terminator, right? If people, like, if when people come away from the book, when they picture AI, instead of picturing Terminator, they picture Prezibot, that's a success. That the book is doing its job. But this is so the way, and it's not even the case that AI is going to be just a tool for you or me, which it is, but that's part of it. Is that AI is going to glue our intelligences, like, the tragedy of any organization is that the intelligence of the whole is less than the sum of the intelligences of the parts. We individuals are intelligent, but a tribe of 100 people is less intelligent than the sum of the individuals, let alone a company of 100,000 people. It's a miracle. It's a true miracle that we grew up in tribes of 100. It's a miracle that a company of 100,000 people works at all. But with AI, it'll work like, for example, I run into this problem all the time that, like, somebody in a company has a question that is really important for some business problem that they have. And naturally, somebody else at the company knows the answer because they've done it before, but they don't know about each other. AI will overcome that problem. Not only in that way, but say, like, you have question A, I know B, and she over there knows that B derives A. And the AI can combine my B with her B to A to answer your A question. So it's going to be not just more than the sum of the parts, but exponentially more. It's something that people are going to take a while to get their heads around. Like, AI is going to make, for example, a company exponentially more intelligent than it is today. And this is where we're going. And this is what Prezibot 2.0 is there to illustrate.